the torch of freedom passed from hand to yearning hand, and the vision of our fathers spread hope throughout this land, as the dream some fought and died for in my heart becomes my own. I will strive to keep her promise, America, my home. America, America, may God bless America, and freedom reign across America, my home. From the shorelines to the prairies, to the cities great and small, we have reaped the fruits of justice and liberty for all.
So with deep appreciation for the blessings of freedom that we know in this wonderful land of ours, I'm Dr. George Simon, welcoming you to another edition of Character Matters. This is the program where we talk about what I consider to be the defining issue of our time, the character crisis that we face, and affects so many areas of our daily lives. And if you want to join the conversation tonight, the numbers to call are either 718-717-8296. That's 718-717-8296. And if there are any difficulties with that line, you may try 501-258-8326. That's 501-258-8326. If you want to join the conversation tonight, we're going to be talking a little about what I posted on my blog at manipulative-people.com or drgeorgesimon.com. Either URL will take you to the same place. Posted an article this past Friday on how to confront narcissism effectively. A very timely topic, especially in our time. You know, we've been in the age of narcissism for quite some time now, several decades. And problem's not gotten any better. It's only gotten a little worse. And various approaches to dealing with it have been tried by a lot of different folks. And I'm here to tell you, it's pretty abysmal, the way folks have been trying to address the problem. So we're going to talk about that tonight, about things that work and things that don't work. As anybody in a relationship with a narcissistic individual has had to probably learn the hard way. And if you're in one of those relationships, and if you want some helpful advice, feel free to call. Maybe you have a story you just want to share. Maybe something you want the listening audience to benefit from. That's just fine. Give us a call at either 718-717-8296 or 501-258-8326, and I'll be happy to take your call. Well, it's been an interesting week, to say the least. In the news, it always is these days. I see we have someone calling in, so let me take this call. Hello, and welcome to Character Matters.
Thank you. This is Liz, and I just have a brief question for you. I'm looking for a therapist in Dallas, Texas. I was wondering if you know anyone trained by you or...
Well, you know, it's very interesting. I do not have... When I'm doing training workshops, I always ask attendees to send me their contact information if they want direct referrals. And I have done training now twice in your area. So I'm sorry to say that I don't have anyone who has emailed me or sent me information asking specifically for referrals, but I can tell you that several professionals in your area have attended my training workshops and do subscribe to the kind of orientation that I advocate. So if you do some checking around, you're likely to find someone who fits the bill if you ask the right questions. So there's two things you want to be sure to ask. You want to ask something about their orientation, their approach to therapy, and if they adopt a cognitive behavioral approach, and they can tell you that, then that's the best thing to look for, especially if you're dealing with character disturbance. Then the other question you want to ask is how much experience they've had working with individuals who have disturbances of personality and character. So those are the two questions to ask.
I've been trying to search online. Very difficult to find one. I'm dealing with a character disturbance spouse, and it's very difficult to find a therapist in my area.
Can you say a little bit about your situation?
I don't know if it'd be safe to say, but everything in denial. I didn't know what was happening until I started Googling about a year ago, and I came across your blog and your YouTube videos, and just light bulb went on. And I was going very crazy, thinking, what's wrong with me,
Mm-hmm.
And I finally figured out what it is. And
so are you seeking therapy? Are you seeking services for yourself primarily, or for a relationship partner?
Basically, it's for the partner, but most likely he's not going to agree to go to one. So somebody suggested to me that I should find one, go first myself, and then go from there. I don't know whether it will work or not, or at least I'll get some kind of help.
And is this something you were hoping to do together right from the outset, or were you hoping to do?
No.
Okay.
No.
Well, then I can give you a second bit of advice, and that is to put the burden of responsibility where it squarely belongs. If somebody has a character disturbance, they need to address that character disturbance long before you can get any repair work done in any kind of joint therapy. So, in addition to securing your own help, you should simply set a condition that the other person needs to get their own. And that becomes their responsibility. You don't need to nursemaid that process. You only have to basically draw the line and set the conditions. So,
yes, we've been to a couple therapy and very manipulative, so that didn't work. I felt like I was back to square one again, and I tried setting boundaries, and that's really having really bad consequences on me. So I realized after we went that the therapist was not maybe trained in this area, or because he's highly savvy, manipulative, that the therapist wasn't able to see through.
Mm-hmm. It does take a special degree of training. So, but that still becomes his responsibility. In other words, you only have to judge the results.
Right.
All you have to do is judge the results. If you're not seeing the changes you want to see, then he's still got work to do. And it's not your responsibility to find just the right person and to work out all the details.
At this point, I'm seeking help for myself now.
Mm-hmm.
Really.
Well, in that case, unless you suspect that you have some character disturbance of your own, in that case, I would suggest that just about anybody with a good deal of training and a good ear.
Here's the thing. Everybody around us know who has the character, disturbance. He's always in denial, and it's from his side. The people suggested that I should go, see a counselor first, and then take him later on. But like from what you're saying and from what I've been following with your work, that doesn't work unless it comes from the person himself.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that. Yeah, but I'm like stuck.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would suggest for yourself. I'm sure there are. For yourself, I'm sure there are hundreds, if not thousands, of qualified professionals in your area that can provide you the supportive counseling that you need.
Okay. They suggest that you should get one too. They're saying let's give it a try. Let's give it a chance.
Yeah, but that becomes his responsibility, and all you have to judge is the results.
Right, but I don't know how to find one.
For him, that's
for sure.
Yeah, for him, that's not your job. You don't have to find one. He does.
Okay. So, I appreciate your help. Is there any good source that I can go to find a good therapist?
There may be. There may be an associate, and that the area you're in is large enough that there may be an association. I'm sure there is. I know that there is a Texas Psychological Association, and I know that there are associations statewide and locally for social workers and licensed professional counselors as well. And they may have, each one of those organizations may have a list of referrals by specialty, so that they may have some folks that they know specialize in the area of the personality or character disturbance or relationship partners, survivors of toxic relationships. So it would be worth a try to just contact some of those professional organizations, either the psychological organizations, the organizations for social workers, or professional counselors.
Okay.
Marriage and family therapists also have a similar organization statewide. I'm sure they do.
I'll try. Googling one of those. Yeah, I've tried, but I've called a lot of places, and they keep telling me, we don't specialize in narcissism or, in character disturbance area. We're trained overall for a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
We can accommodate. That's what they keep telling me.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's not going to work for me because we've been to one already.
Mm-hmm. Well, best of luck to you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Bye. Well, I'm sure that given enough time and attention to this, she will secure the help she needs. On the victim end, it is really tough too sometimes, because some therapists are not really fully appreciative of the kind of special headache that being in a relationship with a character disturbed person can give you, and the kinds of crazy making effects that can be produced. We call this the gaslighting effect, where, all along you suspect that there's something really not quite right about the relationship partner, but somehow they manage to make you think that there's something wrong with you, and you end up feeling kind of crazy. And you also end up usually investing a whole lot in a relationship that isn't getting very far. And so you feel pretty defeated on that score for all the investment that you've made, and risking the loss of all that investment if you have to face the possibility of walking away. So it's a very unique kind of situation to be in, and it takes a really skilled individual understanding in the special circumstances. But if you ask around, almost every state has an association for psychologists, for psychiatrists, for social workers, for marriage and family therapists, and for professional counselors. And some areas are large enough, some metropolitan areas are large enough, that there are even associations in those various disciplines for just that area. And in some cases, these associations, these professional associations, do have information about their members' specialty areas. So with enough asking around, generally you can find the help you need. I do have a very limited list. I'll tell you the problem with keeping a list. I get more requests for therapist referrals than anything else. I get 50 to 60 inquiries a week in my email, and about half of them are just simply people either wanting to say, thanks for making me not feel crazy anymore, and they found something of benefit in one of my 4 books, either in Sheep's Clothing or Character Disturbance, or How Did We End Up Here, or The Judas Syndrome. They found something in one of those 4 books that really made their life make sense and helped them get out of a hole. And they just wanted to say thanks, or perhaps they're calling or trying to get in touch with me to set up a consultation along the lines that I outline on my blog that I sometimes do. But the other half of the time, they're asking for referrals, somebody who gets it in their area, and they can really help because many times they've experienced, as I've mentioned on the program before, what we call therapy-induced trauma, which is a person's gone for help, and not only didn't they get the help they wanted, but somehow they ended up feeling worse for the effort. Maybe the therapist was not familiar enough with the subtle tactics of impression management and manipulation. And so therefore, maybe the therapist even got snowed by the person who was really skilled at the art of what we call impression management, made a good, favorable impression, looked good, said all the right things, did all the right things, and made a favorable impression on the therapist. Maybe that was the case. Or the other case can be that the therapist is so aligned, so firmly aligned with a perspective like, say, the systems perspective, where every family system is seen as trying to maintain some kind of homeostasis. And within that kind of a paradigm, everybody has an equal role in maintaining the family system dynamics. So perhaps the therapist is going to approach things with, well, what's your role in maintaining this this problem behavior? And although there's some validity to that, that kind of approach doesn't make the victim feel too good. So they experience what we call therapy-induced trauma. So whatever the case may be, with enough patience and effort, most of the time you can find just the right person. The problem that I have is twofold. I do get folks, as I mentioned, when I do training workshops across the country, who will send me information. And problem number one is, even though they've been to a workshop and even though they say they adopt the approach that I advance, there's no telling how good they are at the implementation of the approach. And also, people change over time. They move over time. So I give information, maybe very good information in April and not so good information in October. So to keep up an active roster of referrals that I know are people in various areas with not just the right degree of training and the right orientation, but also of the skill level necessary, that would be an absolutely impossible task. So I kind of gave up on that a long time ago. But when people do ask me, and if I do have in my archive, my email archive, a note from a past workshop attendee wanting referrals, and then I get an inquiry from somebody in their area, I am happy to pass the name along. It's unfortunate, but I didn't have one for the area that the young lady was calling about just moments ago. So I hope I do hope that you find what you need. So we're going to be talking more about narcissism tonight. The article I wrote this past Friday and posted on my blog at manipulative-people.com or drgeorgesimon.com. Either URL will take you to the same place. The article I wrote was the first in a series of articles that I'm going to be writing on confronting narcissism effectively. And I have to tell you, I've been watching TV with utter dismay for many, many months now. Utter dismay. You know, I have been reticent for a lot of good reasons, not the least of which are some really critical ethical reasons. You know, as many of you know, and I've mentioned this before, I've been solicited to appear on a number of high-profile television programs. And I've been asked, basically, to participate in the game of sensationalism. You know, hard news died a long time ago. Got news for you, folks. It died a long time ago. True, good, hard, investigative journalism, true, good, relentless, unbiased seeking of the truth, without an axe to grind and without a political bias on the front end, that kind of thing went away a long, long time ago. It, for all intent and purposes, is dead. Right now, the companies that own these news outlets, they want ratings and they want sponsors. They want to make money. The best way to do that is with sensational news. They want something they can talk about, a story that has legs, as they say in the biz, something that will get people churned up and tuned in, even if they're not getting anywhere and even if they're not doing any good. It's not about that. And so I had many folks wanting me to go on the air and sensationally declare that our current president has a narcissistic personality disorder, a dangerous mental illness, and therefore would be a danger to have in office. This was even during the election season, and even since. And I wouldn't do it because it's unethical to do it. It's unethical to, first of all, diagnose from a distance without firsthand knowledge of a person and their history, and without corroborating evidence, like certain diagnostic tests, etc. So it's unethical to do that. And the folks that have broken that canon, they ought rightfully be held to account for their ethical breaches. But it doesn't take a PhD, either in rocket science or in clinical psychology. It doesn't take a PhD to see the narcissism evident in our current president. Most folks know enough about narcissism to at least know what certain features of it look like. And here's the problem that I have. Narcissism is rampant today. Very rampant. There's no shortage of it. And character disturbance, as I mentioned in my books, this is why really the articles on my blog, the books that I've written in sheep's clothing, especially my book, Character Disturbance, the Judas Syndrome, and How Did We End Up Here? How did we end up here, especially, and my book, Character Disturbance, really emphasize this character disturbance spectrum. Character disturbance exists along a spectrum of both severity and degree. So narcissism is a feature of many character disturbances, and narcissistic personality disorder is a specific kind of character impairment. It comes in two varieties. We've talked about that before, and we'll talk more about that again in just a minute. But the thing that dismays me more than anything else is that we've become so habituated to narcissism, and we are so taken in by its slicker forms. I'll repeat that. We are so seduced by the charming narcissists among us that only when a boorish, brash, vulgar version of narcissism stares us in the face do we finally get unnerved and say, what's going on here? That's really, in my opinion, I'm giving you my humble opinion, that's a really sad statement. We not only tolerate, we have not only gotten used to so many of the more palatable expressions of narcissism, but we even reward it. There are plenty of full-blown narcissists in our politics, in our entertainment industry, in our professional sports circles. We pay these people ungodly sums of money. We give them accolades. We afford them prestige and power. And we don't think anything of it. We don't demand any more character of them. And then some really boorish, vulgar, openly haughty kind of narcissist comes along, and we're revolted. Oh my. Oh my. You know, some can charm. Some don't care to charm. There are some grandiose narcissists among us who don't feel obliged to try and charm. They know they're great, and they don't care what you think. And so they don't try to impress you. They don't try to say all the right things, do all the right things. They pretty much demand that you respect them without doing a thing to earn it. And we don't like that kind of narcissism. But I'm here to tell you that narcissists of any stripe can do damage. Beware of the charmers. So many times, I have dealt with individuals at the end of a toxic relationship where they are just so badly beaten up they can hardly get it together. After years and years of mental and verbal and emotional abuse, they've endured all kinds of things in their relationship. And they finally had it. But on the front end of the relationship, they were seduced. Their charm alarm did not go off. Their charm alarm did not sound. It didn't signal to them that this person that was using all these seductive tactics may have had an angle. And they were effectively seduced on the front end. And it took them years and a lot of heartache to figure out who the person was that they were really involved with. It's just unthinkable. It's just unthinkable that in our day and time, we would become so habituated, so desensitized to narcissism that we only get perturbed when this really boorish form of it stares us in the face. And my greatest fear is, now that we have seen this level of the more vulgar, banal, boorish narcissism, grandiose narcissism, now that we have seen this and we've gotten kind of used to it, seeing it every day, now that we've seen this and have gotten used to it, my fear is, what will it take to unnerve us next? What kind of really severely disturbed character are we going to have in a position of power and influence next? You see, some danger is built into the system. It's ripe for opportunism. We have need for representative government. And that's because we can't do everything for ourselves. And the biggest reason we can't do as much for ourselves as we used to is because, for various reasons, we have decided to amass in these concentrated, large urban centers instead of the smaller communities in which we started. Anybody that's ever lived in a smaller community knows how different life is. Life is so much different on just about every single dimension you can imagine. When everyone knows one another, and when everyone is part of holding the community together and does their part of holding the community together. Nothing escapes a nicely bound community where people generally do as much as they can for themselves, and what they truly cannot do for themselves, they do for one another. That's the way it works in smaller communities. But we have decided to put 90% of our population, and this was a decision. This was not always the case, folks. It's why the country has changed so dramatically. It's the biggest single reason. And people get lost. We weren't meant to live like that. We are social creatures, primarily. We are social creatures. And we were never meant to be faceless in huge crowds. It's inherently destructive. Community disappears, and we disappear with it. And so we become increasingly dependent on our representatives to do our business for us. And that gives opportunists prime opportunity to exploit, because all they have to do is say what they think people want them to say and do what they think people want them to do. And then they will be entrusted with the reins of power. And we're looking at the results of that right now. Big time. Someone said the right things to those folks who felt disenfranchised, and they had every right to feel disenfranchised. Because nobody listens to the folks paying the tab. Nobody. Nobody's been doing that for many years now. It's just ripe for opportunism. Somebody comes along and says, hey, I know you've been paying the tab, and I know you're sick and tired of being shafted for all your efforts. So guess what? I'm going to change all that. I'm going to serve your needs. I'm going to drain the swamp, and I'm going to reverse course. And to many people, that appeals. And to many people, they don't look beyond that. They don't say, okay, but is this person who wants to be entrusted, is this person of the character? And do they have the competence to lead? What are their principles? What's the evidence in their life that they honor certain essential principles? That's what character is all about. We don't ask those questions anymore, and therefore we get exactly the government and the people in it that we deserve. It's our own fault. And nature will have its way with us. As I mentioned before, we were meant to live very differently than we've been living today. We were never meant to live piled on top of one another, where it's even possible for one of us to get lost in the shuffle. We were never meant to live that way. Human beings were designed for communities. We are inherently social creatures. We are interdependent. We must be self-reliant to the greatest extent that we can, but no one can do everything. And as soon as we lose a sense of community, we lose it all. As soon as we don't know one another, what's going on with one another. You know, I'm going to do a program on the quality of life. I'm not sure exactly when I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do a program just on the quality of life in America and how I think the character crisis has spawned such a deterioration in the quality of life. We have things now, certainly we have things, or we have access to things that we didn't have access to 40 or 50 years ago. You know, there isn't any different kind of restaurant or type of food that we can't have access to in just a minute or two, most often. We have all kinds of comforts, creature comforts, most of us do. Easy personal transportation, instant communication devices, cellular phones, most of us smartphones. We have all kinds of technological marvels at our fingertips. But how about the quality of our lives? How about the solidity of our families? The quality time we're able to spend together? The amount of time that we're able to spend with one another, developing our relationships? The amount of time that we're able to devote to the pressing social needs of our time? Most of us are grinding it out just to make ends meet and keep our heads above water. And most of the time, it's both parents in a family system doing that. The kids get shoved off to daycare, after school care. And then we try and fit everything else in. It's supposed to work that way. It was never designed to work that way. It doesn't work that way. It can't work that way. We've been seduced and we've been deceived. The quality of our life, the quality of most lives, for all of the material comforts and wealth that we enjoy, the quality of most lives has only deteriorated since the end of the Second World War. We had a brief boom, and we had an improvement in our standard of living and in the quality of our life, the likes of which we hadn't seen in many decades. And then the reverse trend started. So I'm going to do a program just on that. And I would invite all of you, any of you who have comments about that, to voice them. And of course, if you have any other questions or concerns, or you want to talk about what we've been talking about tonight about narcissism and how to confront it effectively, which I'm going to get back to in just a minute, give us a call, either at 718-717-8296. That's 718-717-8296, or 501-258-8326. That's 501-258-8326, and I'll be happy to take your call. Well, I started to talk about how this narcissism is being confronted these days, especially by the talking heads in the media. And it's really pretty pathetic. I'm going to really overly simplify this. We have the intellectual elite trying to embarrass the buffoon. They point to the buffoon. They say, you see, he's not all he is cracked up to be. He doesn't really know what he says he knows. He's not really of the character that he proclaimed he was. He's not even capable of doing what he said he was capable of doing. They try to cut this grandiosity down to size. And at the same time, they don't mind making a statement that they consider themselves superior. Well, let me tell you what this kind of tactic only does. It only invites the narcissist to fight back and to say, well, who the heck do you think you are? What makes you so great? And then to pick and find fault, because we all have them. You can't confront narcissism effectively that way, and only narcissistically inclined individuals, albeit more sophisticatedly narcissistic, are wont to fight that way. It doesn't do any good. Besides which, as I say over and over and over again in my workshops, it's not that these folks aren't aware, they are aware. They're even aware of what people say and think about them. It's not that they're not aware. The issue is they don't care. They don't care. They lack what most of us thankfully have, and that is empathy, especially empathy for the human condition. Care about other people's feelings. They lack that. So they don't mind going for the jugular. They don't mind berating. They don't mind being debasing. They don't mind bullying. They don't mind any of those things. They don't care. And if you try to discredit them, they will demean you. It's not the way you do it. The only thing you can do is to let the truth of matters, expose the vulnerability that comes along with being a fraud. That's the only thing that works. And what our journalists have long abandoned, and I pray that they will get back to someday, maybe they'll learn the lesson, maybe, I pray, is that when there is an objective, and I do mean objective, no bias going in, you can't be on, how do you do a truly investigative, let's say you're a private investigator. If you already think you know the answer, how do you investigate the case to find the answer objectively? You have to have no dog in the fight, no axe to grind, and no point of view getting in your way. What you have to be about is a relentless, objective, unbiased pursuit of the truth. That's what has the power to expose anyway. But folks don't want that. And besides which, it doesn't make sensational news. So these folks have let us down, and big time. And it doesn't work. What's going to have to happen is a radical change, a truly radical change. And I hope and pray it comes soon. What we also have going on these days is a never-ending election. From the minute somebody gets in, there are forces that want him out, him or her. Or that want him or her to fail. Rather than giving someone an honest shot and letting them prosper or fail on their own merits, we can course correct if we have one thing. We can course correct if we have the one thing that makes all the difference. And that is the humility to acknowledge a mistake and fix it. And that is a character issue. And that in itself is testament to why character matters so much. That's why character matters so much. Sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes we make big mistakes. And when we do, it's incumbent upon us to admit them. It's incumbent on us to admit them. We have to admit them before we can find the wherewithal to correct them. It's just the way it is. You know, when I'm working with individuals with significant character disturbances. I have to do what I was always trained, actually, not to do. And that is to ask the tough, provocative questions. But without malice, and with true, genuine love in my heart, a true desire to make things better, to advance the cause of life, to help someone prosper and those around them. But I have to ask the tough questions, put people on the spot, deal with their motivations, deal with their choices, deal with their thinking patterns and attitudes and beliefs, challenging them all the way. Always in the hope that with enough humility and honesty, they will deal with what needs to be dealt with and course correct. The inevitability is that pride gets in the way. People don't like admitting mistakes. It's hard. There's a lot of reasons why. First of all, it shatters an image. And it invites us to have to deal with feelings of guilt and shame. And then it invites work. Generally, the work of repair. Once we know we've messed up, we have to do something to make things better. That takes effort. And each time, with each effort, it can sometimes be only a reminder of what we did to mess up. That's what character is all about, and that's why character matters so much. It matters to everything. It affects every aspect of our lives. That's why I write about it. That's why I talk about it on this program every week. It's why you can find hundreds of articles on it on my blog at manipulative-people.com or drgeorgesimon.com. That's why I've written 4 books already about it: In Sheep's Clothing, Understanding and Dealing with Manipulative People, Character Disturbance, The Phenomenon of Our Age, How Did We End Up Here, my book with co-author Dr. Kathy Armistead, and then also The Judas Syndrome, my book that comes at things from a faith-based perspective, my only book that does that. And hopefully soon, my book, The 10 Commandments of Character, How to Lead a Significant Life. I got an email from someone just not too long ago. I haven't answered the email yet. I saw it come in, and I saw the subject line and first few words, and I'm anxious to answer it because I've gotten about 30 emails like it in the past month, and I'm already, again, a month behind on email, so it's pretty frustrating to me, but I'll get there eventually. But the email I saw was an inquiry from someone who is wondering when this book is going to come out because they've been waiting for it already for several months. And the truth is, I'm not quite sure. I was praying that it would be the end of this summer. I'm still hoping so. Still hoping so. Also, I want to make mention of something, a project dear to my heart. My wife and I have been involved in an enterprise here through our nonprofit organization, Pax Christi. This is a peace and social justice movement We have a chapter here in Little Rock, Arkansas, where we're based. And one of the things that we learned was that there's an elementary school in our area where almost 90% of the children come from impoverished homes, or they're living on the streets or in shelters. And in our so-called free education system, their books and their materials are not afforded them free. They have to purchase them. And they don't have the resources. So they come to school unequipped to learn. And so we have this project going on to purchase this year's supplies for these children. And you can go to the Pax Christi Little Rock Facebook page and find out information about it. And you can go to the GoFundMe account that we have set up for it. And even a few dollars would help us equip 328 children with the supplies they need to go to school next year, so that they have a chance, a fair chance. So even though I don't do this, I'm doing it tonight. I'm asking you to mosey on over to the Facebook page for Pax Christi Little Rock. That's PAXCHRISTI. And look at the articles we've posted about this drive. And you can then go on to the GoFundMe account and get information. Whatever you can manage would be well appreciated. And I know that the children at that school would appreciate it too. Just to be given the chance, the same equal chance as those children who can afford, or whose parents can afford the materials they need to learn. That would be so helpful, and I would be so grateful, and I know the children would be so grateful. So once again, we're getting close to the end of the hour. I hope you've enjoyed listening to Character Matters. We are still in the process of redefining just a little bit our mission and tweaking our message. And I hope you'll bear with us through that change, and I hope that you'll call in and give your suggestions and ask your questions. We should be live next week, but I am not certain of that. There's about a 50% possibility that once again next week's program will be a pre-recorded program, a rebroadcast of a formerly aired program. I'll be able to announce that for sure in next week's blog post this coming Friday on manipulative-people.com or drgeorgesimon.com on my blog. So with that, thanks again so much for tuning in to another edition of Character Matters. I'm Dr. George Simon. I will see you again next week. I hope, if not, you'll be treated to a pre-recorded program. Remember, freedom can only exist with responsibility and character. So, Character Matters. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you again next time.
My home, America, America, may God bless America and freedom reigns.
This is Ozzy Skateboard, and you're listening to UCY.TV.